Why are we so dumb? Why are we, to use your words, badly misinformed? And how have we been duped?
Well, thanks. It's great to be with you, and I look forward to being in Sydney with you next month. I think it's fair to say that apocalyptic environmentalism has become the dominant religion of so-called secular people. People are treating nature as a kind of victim god that has to be, on the one hand, harmonized with through renewables, but also is punishing us with climate change. So it's a completely superstitious mythology. It's taking us a very dangerous path. We can see that we now know that solar panels and batteries are mostly made by incarcerated Uyghur Muslims in China. We've seen the dangers of becoming dependent on a totalitarian regime. Europe is in the worst energy crisis in 50 years because it was seduced by Vladimir Putin. Well, now the risk is that by becoming dependent on renewables, we're going to become dependent on China. I think a few data points are important here. California has tried to move to renewables over the last decade. In truth, we produce 10% less of our electricity from zero carbon energy sources because we've had less rain for the hydroelectric dams, and also because we shut down nuclear power plants. Over that same period, we saw electricity prices rise 7-fold more than they did in the rest of the United States. California now has the most expensive electricity in the world, and we are in the midst of the 4th night of power outages in California. They're having a hard time keeping the lights on. All of the promises they told us about batteries and solar panels turned out to be a gigantic lie. We've gone down a very dangerous road. We need a harder look at better solutions, particularly natural gas and nuclear power.
But Michael, that's magnificent what you've just told us. How come, though, we just are blind and deaf to these realities?
Well, I mean, look, there's sort of financial motives. There's also power motives. And then it's a religion. So obviously there's some big financial interests tied up with Chinese renewable energy companies, battery companies. They've been selling a mythology around renewables. Obviously, people seeking power in our society try to control people through fear, making them afraid of climate change as though it's an apocalyptic threat. It's not. There is no scenario of apocalyptic disaster in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's reports. Not only that, but every single Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change scenario predict higher living standards in the future, not lower living standards. The real threat are climate policies, which we're seeing play out in real time in Europe, which are resulting in energy scarcity, energy shortages, fertilizer shortages, the closure of steel and aluminum factories. Europe is headed towards severe economic recession, if not depression. And Australia, the United States, and other countries won't be far behind if we continue down this terrible path of really land-intensive, environmentally degrading renewables.
Magnificent.
It's important to remember that renewables could not power the Industrial Revolution. They require too much land, about 300 times more land for solar panels than for a natural gas plant or a nuclear plant. They require 3 to 7 times more materials like copper and rare earths, steel and concrete. So what you get with renewables are a kind of parasitic energy source that degrade the natural environment and reduce economic growth. It's a recipe for de-civilization, not for economic growth and prosperity.
Well,